Go.
I was trying to see what the title was.
Oh, man. Shalom.
Shalom.
Anybody there yet? Maybe it's just, let's see here. Ah, there you go. Well, I suppose we should wait since no one's here.
I suppose so. It looks like there's two
Oh,
on.
Angie's there. Shalom,
Shalom,
Angie.
Angie.
Shalom, Chag Sameach. Happy holiday. And Keith's there. Shalom,
Yay,
Keith.
Shalom, Keith.
Oh, I meant that to be a reply. Oh, well. There we go.
Looks like there's 4 people.
Oh,
Zimra,
there.
yay.
Shalom, baby and Faye. And give people a couple minutes to sign on here.
Yep.
And we're doing this right now. Why are we doing this right now? This Bikkurim thing.
Because it's biblical.
What do you mean?
I'm supposed to do it going into the first day of the week. It's Feast of First Fruits.
It's Feast of First Fruits.
Mm-hmm.
What's it? Well, we're going to talk about that, so I don't know if we want to really.
Nope. He already thought I was peeking at his notes.
You were peeking at my notes.
I was trying to get the title so I can write it in my book.
Okay. Let's see. Couple minutes and we're good to go.
Looks like there we go.
Kathleen House. Oh,
Yay!
Shalom.
Lena,
Lena's
Kathleen.
all right.
Yay.
Shalom. Chag Sameach.
How does Maya?
Happy holidays. Okay, so what I want to do first is read through a small portion from your favorite book and mine, Leviticus, because it's so exciting, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know why people struggle with Leviticus, but this part is pretty cool. It's Vayikra Leviticus 23. So you could turn to 23, which talks about the feasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Moadim is the Hebrew word, the appointed times of God. That's what they are. They're God's appointments with us.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't miss an appointment with God.
Nope.
And we'll be starting with verse 9. So I'm going to bring it up in the computer, so I won't be able to see you guys for a minute here. Leviticus 23 with verse 9. Oh, that's small. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Well, a lot of verses today. Adonai said to Moses, well, really, Adonai, and Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, really would be more appropriate, and we'll move on. And he said, tell the people of Israel, after you enter the land I'm giving you, and harvest its ripe crops. Remember, this is the time when Joshua, and the people camped right outside the land, and they ate the first fruits, and they ate the first Passover in the land, and the manna stopped. And so this was for that time. He said, tell the people of Israel, when you enter the land, I'm giving you to harvest its ripe crops. This will be later, because now they're in the land. You are to bring a sheaf mm-hmm. of first fruits of your harvest to the sheaf bee. Anybody? Oh, Sherelle's there. Shalom, Sherelle. Chag Sameach. And a sheaf, you take a good bunch of it, right?
Yeah.
Of the
like a handful or
and
two.
you tie it together,
mm-hmm.
and there's a sheaf, and you would take it and, well, you're going to do something with it, but we didn't read that verse yet. So you're going to take it to the Kohen, the minister, And verse 11, he is to wave the sheaf before Adonai. Who waves the sheaf? Do you wave the sheaf?
The Cohen does.
No, the Cohen waves the sheaf. He's to wave the sheaf before Adonai, this first fruits of grain, so that you will be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So that you will be accepted. The sheaf is waved. That's interesting. Wonder why that is. The Cohen is to wave it on the day after the Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
The day after the Shabbat. And right here, we're in the passages talking about Pesach. So this is the Shabbat during Pesach. And right as it's ending, this sheaf, this first fruits coming from the ground, this first fruits of grain coming from the ground, is to be taken to the temple and waved in front of all the people, so God could see it. That's interesting. On the day that you wave the sheaf, you are to offer a male lamb without defect in its first year as a burnt offering for Adonai. There's a lamb connected with this offering. Its grain offering is to be yada, 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 right? Fragrant aroma. Next verse. You are not to eat bread, dried grain, or fresh grain until the day you bring the offering for your God. It's important when God is looking for, don't put it off.
Right.
Do it right away. A permanent regulation, verse 14 is telling us to do this as a permanent regulation throughout all your generations, no matter where you live. Wow. Julius is there.
Hi, Julius.
Julius. Happy Bikkurim. There you go. And we're going to go to the next one. The next verse 15. From the day after the day of rest. What's the day of rest?
Shabbat.
From the day after the day of rest, what day would that be?
The first day of the week.
And what do we call that in Hebrew?
Yom Rishon.
Yom Rishon, the first day of the week. So, from that day, you are to bring a sheaf from the day you bring the sheaf for waving, because that's when you do that too, on the day at the Shabbat. On Shabbat, you are to count 7 full weeks. 7 full weeks. But that's what this translation says. The Complete Jewish Bible. Let's see. The New American Standard says complete Sabbaths. Sabbaths. The Tanakh says weeks. The King James says Sabbaths. Interesting. Let's see what the Hebrew says. How many? We're supposed to count 7 of something here. Is it weeks or is it Sabbaths? Who can tell me how to say weeks? If it was weeks, how would you say that word? If you're supposed to count 7 weeks from the day after the Shabbat during Passover week, how would it say that? What's the Hebrew word for weeks?
Shavuot.
Weeks. Shavuot. It would say Shavuot. Let's see, what do we see up here? Uh-oh. I don't see weeks. What do I see here?
Shabbatot.
Shabbatot. Yeah. You're supposed to count from the day after the Sabbath, which is Yom Rishon, during Passover week, which is now today because the sun's down. You are to count 7 Sabbaths. 7 Sabbaths. Shabbatot. Okay. Until the day after the 7th, it says week, but what does it say in Hebrew?
Shabbatot.
Shabbat. The 7th, the last Shabbats. The day after that Shabbat, until the day after the 7th Sabbath, you are to count 50 days. So it will always, see, this has to do with that counting thing. The traditional count starts on the day after the first day of Matzah, right? And you can get 7 weeks from there and call the next day the traditional Shavuot. But it's not gonna land on the day after Sabbath.
No.
There's only one, there's no Sabbath in that area. There's only the weekly Sabbath. There was a discrepancy in the first century. People argued about this, which way we're supposed to do. And but the authorities at the temple knew the right way, and they said from the day after the Sabbath during Passover week, that's when you start counting 7 Sabbaths. Okay, so then what happens at the end of that? What is the 50 days? What's the end of the 50 days? Emmy says, Shabbat Shalom. Mark Campbell's there. Chag Sameach. All right. And Olivia's joined us. Chag Sameach. And Reuben's joined us. And Andrew. Oh, this is awesome. Okay. So what is the 50th day? What is it called?
Shavuot.
Shavuot. Right. Which means weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And in Greek, it's called what?
I don't know. Oh, Pentecost.
Pentecost. For 50, right? And so that's the day that we're leading up. That's what this count is going to be all about. And we're going to do one more verse here before we go on. You must bring bread from your homes for waving. 2 loaves of bread, 2 challah loaves, made with 1 gallon of fine flour, baked with leaven. By then, it's okay for leaven then, not now.
Oh, on Shavuot, yeah.
Yeah. As first fruits for Adonai. First fruits? I thought we said this was first fruits. Didn't we say this was first fruits? How could this be first fruits and that be first fruits?
2 different crops.
2 different crops. Oh. And what's this crop? You remember?
I think this is wheat, isn't it?
Oh.
No. Barley?
Barley. This is the first fruits for barley, and that would be the first fruits for
wheat.
Wheat. There you go. Okay. So how is this significant? I mean, maybe you're really bored with this already. I don't know. But we're going to... But here's a connection. All right? This is all kind of a shadow.
Hi, Christine.
Yeah, shalom. So there was a rabbi in the first century. This guy, he was a rabbi, right? And he was called, you know what? And if you have a scripture that matches the thing that I'm saying, shalom, Tam, Chag Sameach, Zach, Chag Sameach. If you know where the scripture comes from, post the scripture or the citation or both, okay? There was a rabbi in the first century who was identified, who called himself bread from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Bread from heaven. Bread from heaven,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was born in a place called Beit Lechem.
Mm-hmm.
You can also tell me, what does Beit Lechem mean? Oh, okay.
House of bread.
House of bread. He is the same rabbi who made this parable talking about a grain of wheat, a grain, right? A grain that falls, well, he said a kernel of wheat, that falls to the ground and is buried, right? What's the story about that grain of wheat? Do you remember? What happens with the grain of wheat? What has to happen?
It grows.
Well, it falls, unless it falls to the ground
And dies.
and is buried, it can't bring forth more fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just like the afikomen.
Mm-hmm.
Remember at the Seder, we talked about the afikomen? What was the story with the afikomen?
Oh, excuse me. A tickle in my throat. Afikomen, it's broken apart, it's wrapped, it's hidden, and it comes back at the end of the Seder.
Yeah, well, Yeshua said, this is my body, the afikomen, a piece of matzah. See if anyone got that. Hey, shalom, Diana's there. So the afikomen was the piece of matzah, a particular piece of matzah at the Seder that was eaten after dinner, which was bruised, pierced, striped, right, and broken. And Yeshua, and passed around for people to be eaten. Yeshua said, this is my body, the afikomen. And it was without leaven, of course, because it's matzah, so it was sinless. And Yeshua, the same guy, the same rabbi, said about that afikomen, he said, this is my body. And it's talking about, he talked about in the parable that wheat would bring forth fruit. And his body, by being raised, brings forth what? It's new life coming forth from the tomb. We're talking about the resurrection. There are numerous gospel accounts of the resurrection with many faithful witnesses. Now, one of the things about, hey, Mo, Chag Sameach, happy Bikkurim. So one of the things that is considered a proof of the resurrection has to do with those witnesses. Say you and I come up with some little scheme to deceive people. Not, we wouldn't do that, but say we did. And then I died, and you were carrying on the little scheme or something. But then the authorities caught on. They came after you and tried to get you to confess that it was really a lie, right? And they were going to torture you to death unless you confessed that it was a lie. Now, you knew it was a lie, right? So if you knew it was a lie and you're facing torture and death for it, are you going to continue the lie? Yeah. How many of you would continue the lie if that was the situation? Not many. But you know what they did? Hey, Alicia's there.
Shalom,
And
Alicia.
Jennifer. All right,
Jennifer, yay.
And so not many of, I don't think anyone would do that. No one that is sane would carry on and keep sticking to a lie when they're facing death over the lie, right? And so, but what happened with these witnesses is many of them died for their faith.
Yes.
They stuck to this story that Yeshua rose from the grave. They stuck to the story of a resurrection. Now, when did this happen? When did this resurrection happen?
On the first day of the week, Yom Rishon.
On the first day of the week. What week?
After the Sabbath.
Not any week.
In the middle of Pesach.
On the first day of the week. And when does the first day of the week start?
Yom Rishon. Sundown.
Sundown on
the last day of the week.
Saturday, right? Shabbat. Right about now.
Sundown on Yom Shabbat.
And the day goes from evening to evening. So so it was Bikkurim. It was this day. It was Bikkurim when it rose from the grave. Did it have anything to do with a vernal equinox?
No.
No. When you read the story in the 4 different Gospels, do you see any chocolate bunnies? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, no eggs really there, no stuff like that. Rather, this was the Son of God. The Son of God fulfilling the promise of Genesis or Bereshit 3:15. And what is the promise in Bereshit 3:15? What is that? Okay. Does anybody know? It's the first indication of a Messiah coming one day.
And let them be for light in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth.
No,
and that is how it
that
was.
would not be chapter 3.
Okay, sorry. My bad. 3:15.
Oh, here we go.
I will put animosity
Here we go.
between you and the woman, and between your descendant and her descendant. He will bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel.
Again, that's complete Jewish Bible, and that's not very, seed can mean descendant, but the word that's there, Zeresh, it means seed. The seed, but what's interesting is the seed of a woman or descendant of a woman. But when you look at the lineages that are given to us in the scripture, what do you notice about those lineages? They're always the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's all the males going down, son of, son of, son of. It's the seed of, the descendant of the male, the descendant of the male, the descendant of the male. Because like the seed, there's the seed and the egg. The seed comes from the man, the egg comes from the woman. But in Genesis 3:15, what's going on here? There's the seed of a woman. Because Yeshua, there was no seed from a man. Interesting. And the seed of a woman defeated the adversary and conquered death, crushing the head of the serpent. On Bikkurim, this seed of Eve defeated the adversary and conquered death, rising after, get this, if you look at, write it down, Mark 16:2 and Luke 24:1, you will find that he's rising after the Shabbaton, right? Not after the Shabbat, after the Shabbaton. What does that mean? What's the significance? Or in Greek, Sabbaton. Actually, it's Greek.
Plural.
Sabbaton. It's plural after the Sabbaths. Now, what does that mean to you?
Well, the first day of matzah is a special Sabbath, and then you've got the weekly Sabbath.
Right.
So that's 2 Sabbaths.
Right. Now, if you're going to bury someone, it's traditional in the Jewish world. You bury a person as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about this wake business. You wash and bury it quickly, right? And you prepare the body for burial, and you bury it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he died very quickly, they didn't have a chance to prepare the body completely.
Nope.
And so there were some women who wanted to come back and finish preparing the body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they wouldn't want to wait like 3 days or something, or 4 days or
Nope.
whatever, because the body would stinketh.
Yeah.
Remember the story of Lazarus? He was in the grave for 4 days, and he stinketh. And so they didn't want to wait any longer than they had to. But they wouldn't go on Shabbat. They were resting on the Shabbats, right? Now, if there was a Shabbat and then a day in between and another Shabbat, wouldn't they have gone in between instead of waiting for the body to stinketh?
Well, they were probably preparing for the other Shabbat.
That wouldn't take all day.
No.
I'm not going to sit and wait
But
for
how long
2
does
more
it take
days
to
to
anoint
make
the
the
body,
bodies.
though, too?
Not that long.
No.
No, they're not going to wait for an extra 2 days, just then letting the body rot while you're. Would you do that if it was me?
Nope.
Okay,
Troublemaker.
just check it. All right, and so anyway, this is the day when we start the count, because we know when the one feet, and it's going from one first fruits to the next first fruits.
Yep.
See, why is this significant? I mean, they're both grains, but they're different types of grain. Our Mashiach, our Messiah, is like us, but he's also not like us, right? He's a different kind of grain, if you read me, right? It's figurative language, right? He's like us, but he's not exactly like us. He rose from the dead as the first fruits. And one day, if he doesn't come soon, we will rise from the grave as another first fruits. Different kind of first fruits, a little bit. He rose from the dead, as it was written in Yeshayahu, that's Isaiah 53, like we read earlier today, right? Like it was foretold, as a sign to everyone, including us. What's the sign to us? He rose from the dead to give us hope. To give us hope. No matter what we go through in this life, we have hope. No matter how dark things look, we have hope. I remember, you hear these things about the Besorah, the gospel, the good news, and you say you believe them, and you digest them. You say, I affirm, or whatever. This kind of attitude, like and changing attitude, the teshuva, following God, and this sort of thing. But there's one day, quite a while after that, where things were stressful. I think it was at work or something. Things were really stressful for me. They were really getting me down. And I don't know why it hit me this way, but I woke up one day after napping on the weekend or something. And when I woke up, I sat up and I said, I'm never going to die. Right? I mean, it was like, it just hit me like, I'm never going to die. What am I worried about? Anything that happens in this life? What's the worst that could happen? I could die, because if I die here, I'm not really gone. My soul never dies. And everything became much better, right? Because I had hope. The resurrection gives us hope. This is the day our master, our Adonai, he rose from the tomb. And one day we, in like manner, will rise to greet him in the air as he returns to this earth to judge the living and the dead, as is written in the book of Daniel, chapter 12. And it's right at the beginning. She's writing a note, so I'll tell you, it's right at the beginning of Daniel chapter 12. And one day, on that day, we can say in a more complete way than we say now, even though we say it now, we can say in a much more complete way, behold, God is my salvation.
Amen.
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 Well, that's really the end. I know this is a short one because it's evening, and I know, but this is the end. This is about the resurrection. This is about hope. Cling to the hope. Never let go of the hope. And remember, there's still one more. Pesach season is not over. There's still one more Pesach Passover related service. It'll be on Tuesday evening at 7:30. And that's a very significant day as well. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. Thanks for joining us. Shalom.
Bye.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.